Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, and we are keeping score. Dynamic time of year globally, so let's get right to it. Our sports-themed deal-making minutes, 3-1. Let's go. Number 3, the Premier League Primary Stars USA visits Austin Elementary School for a soccer-themed learning session, the intersection of the Premier League and EverFi, a leader in driving social change through technology and education. They join forces at the Perez Elementary School in Austin on hand as part of their overall deal, Soccer Skills Clinic, school-wide assembly centered on areas of critical emotional development and physical development. Premier League star winger and ambassador Sean Wright Phillips, EverFi Global CMO Brian Cooley, Congressman Lloyd Doggett, youth coaches from clubs including Aston Villa, Liverpool, Man City, and Wolverhampton. A big deal with soccer both across the pond and in the U.S. That's number 3. Number 2. PGA Commissioner Jay Monahan revealed that the golf circuit plans to roll out on-site betting offerings at events in the U.S. starting next year. He spoke to the AFP news agency during the Zozo Championship in Japan. Monahan said the move would help keep more fans interested over the course of an entire day. And the key component of the deal was to support the PGA Tour's integrity program. Monahan added that protecting the organization from betting-related corruption will remain a priority, and that's where many of the funds will go. That's number 2. And finally, number 1. About 15% of all World Series ads focused on giving back and corporate social responsibility. More advocacy and corporate social responsibility ads aired during the first 4 games of the World Series than any other type of ad outside automakers, according to data by Advertising Analytics. As the hyper-political environment in Washington becomes more contentious, companies pressured to take a stand on more issues than they have in the past, reflected in their marketing initiatives, and expect the trend to continue at least through the 2020 election cycle. The beginning of the month, EverFi hosts a 50 Years of the Sports Business seminar in Washington, focused on the Sport Business Handbook, my book, along with John Chapman, the co-founder of EverFi and a contributor. Paul Tagliabue, the NFL former commissioner, Nick Sakiewicz, NLL commissioner, Damon Phillips of NBC, Lisa Bowman of United Way, beginning with sports philanthropy, and the end of the month has the team in Washington winning the World Series and generating more social responsibility ads. Pretty good all around. That's deal making 3-1. Speaking of the whole area of philanthropy, corporate perspective, especially given this time of year, Todd Kaplan, the Vice President of Marketing for PepsiCo Worldwide, and he's responsible for overseeing all brand creative, communications, commercial execution across Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Zero Sugar, a whole bunch of stuff. His roles have been basically creative. He delivers close to $500 million in sales during the first 2 years alone of premium water campaigns, but now he's dealing with all of these areas, including the social responsibility cause for celebration with Pepsi and all of their deals around the globe relative to creative marketing. His perspective invaluable, especially as the vertical integration of sports and business and philanthropy continues to increase. Todd Kaplan.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow in the boardroom beyond the scoreboard, and an ongoing series that we've been starting to do since we understand that of the $1.3 trillion business of sports, much of it's rights fees, much of it's corporate activation, and obviously the world of corporate sports marketing makes everything else go round. Leagues and teams might have a different opinion of that, but not Todd Kaplan, the VP of Marketing for PepsiCo. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing wonderfully. So the obvious answer is you are jousting, I think, for the king of the marketing world. The soda world is incredibly competitive. You're no longer soda. It's much more diverse than that. So as the VP marketing for Cola/Pepsi, obviously the flagship brand, Pepsi, but everything else. Give me kind of a quick elevator speech about, your day, your role, your mandate.
Well, I guess I'd say why I love my job right now is every day is different. I can't think of a more dynamic industry than beverages today. Has seen so much change, in terms of the consumers are changing, the media landscape is changing, the retail channels are changing, right? All of these things combined, to me, it makes it really interesting and dynamic for a marketer to come in and try to figure out what are solutions, how do you connect with consumers, and how do you, and it's an honor to work on a brand like brand Pepsi, which is one of the most iconic, biggest brands out there that's got such a storied heritage in sports and music. It's been great, and so I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, but you're the water king too, because a couple of the two biggest innovations in Pepsi's history, the sparkling water and the premium water, were launched under your watch. So any particular expertise that you had to do, you now know more about water probably than anybody alive.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's funny you bring that up. Yeah, no, my previous role was leading our water portfolio here, where I launched two new brands, Life Water, our premium water, and Bubbly, our new sparkling water, and both have been doing tremendously well. But I'd say, it's been interesting, getting to study a new category like, or a category like water that's really been emerging and growing tremendously, and juxtaposing what's needed to succeed there with a big iconic brand in cola like Pepsi. And obviously it's different skills that you apply to different areas. Obviously in water, it's a bit more entrepreneurial, and you're starting new brands, and the things that are needed from a design, naming hierarchy, the marketing plans, all that stuff, driving awareness, getting distribution, all of that, juxtaposed with Pepsi, where everyone's heard of Pepsi, everyone's tried it. It's about brand relevance, how you connect with people and all of that. But I think the one common ground thing that's been a guiding light for me is really just being laser focused on the consumer, and just really truly digging into what consumers are looking for, what they need, understanding kind of their behaviors to really help build products and marketing campaigns that kind of connect to them.
All right, talk about building products for a minute. So you're sitting there and obviously responsible for the parent flagship brand, as it's called, but you are looking at Diet Pepsi, you're looking at Pepsi Zero, you're looking at other brands. How much of the creativity is intuition? How much of it is ROI? How much of it analytics, gut, psychology? There are a lot of factors, I'm sure. And when you're sitting at the drawing board creating a brand, what's the dominant skill?
It's interesting, and I think that's kind of why I love marketing, is there is no dominant. It's always a blend of the art meets the science, right? Is there's clearly data, and you get a lot of research and focus groups and quant studies and details that say this is a trend, this is what consumers want, 1 out of 5 people like this, all that kind of stuff. And then a lot of it is just the kind of art of it, of how you manifest what those insights or those learnings are into actual actions, both from product design, naming hierarchy, how you brief a TV spot, so the selection of talent, what's happening in it, like a Super Bowl spot, all those kind of different things. So there's a lot of fun. Like I said, no one day is the same in marketing, as you do everything from one day you're talking to someone on the Walmart business, the next day you're talking to consumers really trying to understand the future of a category, and the next day you're on an ad shoot, coming up with new campaigns and things like that. So it's always fun and really dynamic.
So Antacid time, February 2nd, 2020, I mean, that separates the big boys from the non-big boys. You're already in the, not the hot seat, but you're in the control seat. It's the Super Bowl 54 halftime show in conjunction, obviously, with Rock Nation. And obviously you couldn't pick better superstars than J-Lo and Shakira. How did it all come to be? And you're not going to tell me the budget, but it's pretty significant, huh?
Of course not. But listen, Pepsi, Pepsi has always been a longtime partner of the NFL, and it's our 17th season with the NFL, and with the halftime show, it's been a great property for us to really connect this idea of where sports and music and entertainment all intersect on the world's biggest stage. And I think, we're really excited about what we can do together with Rock Nation and the partnership. We've already had a number of great meetings with them in the NFL and kicked off the planning process. As you've seen, we've just announced J-Lo and Shakira to participate in the show. And, listen, I think throughout the years, Pepsi's had this really strong heritage in music. We've worked with a ton of different artists, from Britney Spears to Ray Charles, Beyonce, and this show has become one of the most iconic and anticipated performances out there. And so we couldn't be more excited to welcome both J-Lo and Shakira to the stage, and they're really setting kind of a new precedent, I think, as we look at the show and trying to kind of push it forward of what the show can even become. And so I think it's going to be really incredible what goes down in Miami this year.
Totally agree. I don't know if you're old enough. Do you remember Up With People?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Who?
Are you old enough to remember Up With People, the halftime show of Super Bowl 8 or 9 or 10?
Up With People. I'm not remembering the Up With People. No.
Probably not. That was one of the first halftime shows in Miami with I think it was the Miami High School Marching Band, back when Super Bowl ads cost $45,000 every 30 seconds. Get with the program.
Wow. Okay,
obviously come a long way. A long way.
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed quite clearly. So, you're one of the most innovative CMOs of the world by Business Insider, certainly top 25, and you're very creative. What makes you succeed? What's the biggest kind of trait? This is a business show, and obviously this is a very important aspect of the business. Is it persistence? Is it creativity? Is it tenacity? Is it detail? Is it all of that? Give me a reason why. What makes Todd Kaplan great?
I think there's a whole bunch of things that are probably packed into that question. But I'd say, listen, I think for me one of the most important things that I try and instill in my team is this idea of really kind of being students of culture and look outside the walls of our building and listen to the consumers and see what's happening and start there. I think a lot of, this thing I talk to my team about of being, culture in versus brand out. And what I mean by that is a lot of marketers, there's a business strategic problem to solve. So it's get X consumer to, buy Y product by convincing them that, this rational attribute is important to them, that whatever it is, it has 0 calories, it tastes great, whatever those things are, which are all real business problems to solve. The real, the difference maker is, at the end of the day, why should the consumer care that you're even telling them that? If you don't understand the cultural context that you're connecting with them on, then you're going to miss that interaction. And so start with kind of the culture in of what's happening in culture, what's kind of culture forward, to then connect the dots. It would be, if you're, for an example, this is a weird example, but if you're walking into a football stadium to go see a game and somebody wanted to sample, toothbrushes, that's probably a weird place to be getting those, even though there's a large amount of people, right? At the end of the day, if the cultural moment has some other kind of thing going on, that's where you can tap into that and then overlay your brand objectives over it. So we recently did something similar to that kind of approach. If you think about it, I don't know if you've noticed what we did in Cleveland this year, just recently with the Believe Land Pepsi, but it's similar kind of thing. I can tell you about it. A couple weeks ago, NBC, we're a big partner of their Sunday Night Football. They were returning to Cleveland for the first time in 11 years because obviously Cleveland has not been a great football town for quite some time. There's a lot of excitement there. And so to celebrate it, we saw this matchup on the schedule, so we created a special orange-colored Pepsi just for the weekend to celebrate that we called Believe Land Pepsi. We made 1,100 bottles of it for fans, so it was 100 for every year. Cleveland had to wait for it to return, and we had a big tailgate party and a whole thing to really give it out and generate a lot of fun and excitement around it. So, again, it's something that the fans were really excited about just because they're celebrating in that idea. And so it's always just start with kind of what's happening in culture and working your way in and figuring out where your brand connects to it rather than kind of having the blinders on for just your brand plan.
And then finally, maybe most importantly from our perspective, is philanthropy. 12% increase year over year in foundational, philanthropic, doing the right thing. Big issue these days of sponsors making sure that the company is perceived in a positive light with all of the issues of role models and social media and the like. Where do you weigh in on the whole doing great by doing good and social causes as part of your overall brand strategy?
So I think overall on brand Pepsi, and right now as you think about football, we just launched this campaign called Always Be Celebrating, and there's TV spots and a number of different things with it. But there's this great component we just launched as a part of it called the Pepsi Cause for Celebration, and it's a partnership with the United Way. And frankly, we've done a lot with the United Way over the year. We did something back in Atlanta when the Super Bowl was in Atlanta with this thing called the Cola Truce, which was a fun thing I can tell you more about later, where we donated to the local city of Atlanta and had a lot of fun with our competitor down there. But this one with the Pepsi Cause for Celebration is this idea that, how do we celebrate all of the 32 teams by bringing a component that the local communities will benefit from them throughout the season. And so basically what we've done is for every on-field touchdown celebration this season that happens, Pepsi is going to donate 100 meals to that team's local community through their local United Way chapter. And we chose 100 meals for each celebration, given it's the 100th anniversary of the NFL this season. And so every time there's a touchdown celebration, because, again, our campaign is around always be celebrating, we're going to do that from the start of the season all the way through Thanksgiving weekend. And so it's things like that we think are really fun. And like I said, the United Way was a logical choice since they're also an NFL partner, and we've done some stuff with them, donating local meals around our Cola Truce activation earlier in the year in Atlanta.
Quite clearly, Pepsi has amazing brand recognition, doing the right thing, philanthropic. Todd Kaplan, the architect behind all of it. Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.
Todd Kaplan's perspective drives not only Pepsi, but everybody else in the sports space as well. Let's talk about the sports tech and the Sports Tech Minute. Well, the Call of Duty launches in January 2020. Activision Blizzard Esports announced the inaugural season of the Call of Duty League, beginning with the launch weekend in Minneapolis Armory. Gary Vanderchuk, an investor with the Wilf family, who are the owners of the Minnesota Vikings, are key investors in hosting this event. The Call of Duty League follows a home-away format, 5 versus 5 match play. Each team hosts a home series weekend in their market, with multiple sports teams being involved. And by the way, tech doesn't involve your normal sports. How about other niche sports as well? Not that surfing isn't normal, but the World Surf League increasing their online content. Their studio division announced its summer the ammunition for ambitious new content strategy. And since the Association of Surfing Professionals was changing ownership in 2012, this group has gone through a series of acquisitions. The off-site platform, the aim is to broaden surfing's reach by distributing content outside of its ecosystem, drawing more people to the sport. And by the way, the sport makes its Olympic debut next year in Tokyo. That's your Sports Tech Minute.
This is the Esports Minute in Keeping Score with Rick Horrow. I'm Mitch Reams from the Esports Network. The biggest esports story of the past week was Riot Games announcing a bunch of new titles. Riot is the developer behind League of Legends. It's the biggest esport in the world by viewership. For the first 10 years of the game, Riot made League of Legends their sole focus. On the 10th anniversary of League last Wednesday, that changed. Riot announced 6 new games. 3 of them have the potential to be massive esports. First is Project A, a tactical shooter that combines CSGO and Overwatch. Second, Project L, a fighting game similar to Street Fighter. Finally, Legends of Runeterra, a digital card game competing against Hearthstone. For all 3 games, Riot's ability to develop a comprehensive esports league will be a welcome change of pace.
Finally, your sports philanthropic and Power of Sports Minute couldn't be more timely. A couple of reactions to the really devastating California wildfires. First of all, according to Entertainment Tonight, LeBron James paid about $3,000 to help firefighters battling the Getty Fire in L.A. The Lakers star, one of many celebrities forced to evacuate the homes on October 28, and first responders can work better, he says, with food in their stomach, now containing 60% of the Getty Fire, but one of 13 wildfires continuing to burn. Good for LeBron James. How about John Cena? He donates $500,000 to firefighters battling blazes across California. Give Me Sports says that fires originally emerged in the state's northern areas, also ripped through approximately 650 acres within the city of L.A. And, of course, on First Responders Day, WWE wrestler John Cena took the time away from filming the Suicide Squad to post a video to Twitter in which he committed to helping those who are managing the disaster. Cena, who will star as a firefighter in the upcoming comedy Playing with Fire, went on to implore the film's production company, Paramount Pictures, to join him in helping those who he considers truly heroic. And his generous financial contributions will be shared between the California Fire Foundation and the LA Fire Department Foundation. Hopefully more celebrities will follow the path of Cena, LeBron James, Guy Fieri, also involved in risking their lives, helping those who are risking their lives to keep others safe. Well, that's our show for this week. Thank you all for listening and watching. Thanks, Todd Kaplan, for giving us some perspective from PepsiCo corporate philanthropy and otherwise. And join us next week when we continue to keep score. Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. Assistance provided by Carl Swadek, Tanner Simpkins, Reuters Digital. I'm Rick Horrow. Thanks again for listening. See you next time on Keeping Score.